It is Circa tonight, presented by SharpStack. It is Matt Brown and Steven Andress. Steven sitting there in the shiny new toy there in Kentucky, Circa Sports. I'm here in Las Vegas, down the street from the original Circa Sports, largest sports book in the world. Happy to be with you guys as we get down to the nitty-gritty here in the NFL. One more college football game to be played, as well as we'll crown a national champion on Monday, Steven. So I cannot believe we say this every single time. You and I have done content for a long time together. We say this every time. I can't believe the season's over. Like, it's like you're in week 4 and you blink and then, we're in the playoffs already.
I know, man. There's so few games left that we're building golf cards this week for the Sony Open and the PGA Tour. It's, I shed a tear this week. I got so desperate that I teased one of these NFL games with a college national championship this week, which, is not fundamentally great advice, but we're running out of games here, Matt, and it's a sad day.
Yeah, it is, been a fantastic season, of course, and, I look back on the stuff from last week and, the final thing that we said in the Buffalo-Jacksonville game that I was like, I really like Jacksonville, but if I sit here and I'm talking to you next week and Josh Allen puts on the cape and wins the game, then I'm not going to be upset. Well, Josh Allen pretty much put on the cape and won the game, and I'm not really that upset. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence was shaky to start, but led a couple of good scoring drives at the end. It's just Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the playoffs. We said it. He's a top 3 quarterback in the league, and the guy continues to defy all odds because 2 more players go down for him. They have no talent on that team as it is anyway, yet they're figuring out how to win games in the most crucial times. It says what a special player he is.
Matt, we had a profitable week. We had a good wild card weekend on this show. That's the one game that's really tough to swallow. I don't know about you. If those 2 teams played again this week, I'd bet Jacksonville again, and I wouldn't blink for a second. And the Jags had 6.6 yards per play. They had some 4th down variants not go their way. That 4th down where Trevor Lawrence had an unforced error and his knee goes down early. If he keeps his feet, it's a 1st down. They might score a touchdown there. Cam Little, one of the best kickers in the league, misses what's basically a chip shot for him. At worst, that final touchdown by the Bills should have been to send this game to overtime or the Jags having a drive to go and win it. And it wasn't the case because of that 4th down variance. And that's how it goes sometimes. We're talking about 1 game sample sizes here, but we have to stay rooted in process over results and the final score. And I think that's going to lead to an interesting conversation about Buffalo going to Denver this week.
Yeah, it is an interesting four games that we have here. 3 pretty close spreads, 1 that's gotten out there a little bit. We'll talk about some news that came through today there in that game. But as a reminder, we're going to get Denver and we're going to get Seattle back this week. They were on bye last week, getting the number 1 seed overall in their conference. So they rejoined the party here this week with us, and we'll be comparing all of the lines using the SharpStack app. If you guys want to go in and use the promo code TNF Live, 7 days absolutely free, 25% off when you actually go in there and subscribe. We definitely know that you will. And of course, you can go visit Steven there at Circa Sports in Kentucky if you want to. I'm telling you, it is a sports viewing experience like no other. So if you're listening to us on 104.1, 930 AM WKCT there in Bowling Green, you can make your way down to Circa and have the time of your life whenever you're betting sports and watching sports down there. And really and truly what you got to see to believe. All right, Steven. So Saturday, Buffalo is going to be on the road to the aforementioned Denver. It is a point and a half in favor of Denver. This did start with Buffalo a point and a half. 45.5 to 46.5 is available out there from a total perspective. Now, this is middle of January, and we're going to be getting like high 40s and sun and whatever. And all that. So, like, if you're expecting a weather game in Denver in late January, you're not going to get it, unfortunately. So we're just going to be watching, sunshine and awesome weather. So it is what it is. It's fine. We won't be handicapping the weather there in that one too much. What we will be handicapping, though, Steven, is the injuries on the Buffalo side of the ball.
There's a lot of them. Let's start with the offense. Josh Allen's banged up. To what degree that's affecting him, I don't know. He still looked like Superman to me last week. They're still missing their pass-catching back, Ty Johnson. Doesn't look like he's going to play. And they have 3 receivers they put on IR this week. So it looks like now the starting wide receiver core for the Bills will be Khalil Shakir, Brandon Cooks, and is that Keon Coleman's music out of the doghouse now for Buffalo? Maybe Curtis Samuel, who is on IR, but they opened his 21-day practice window. He was back-to-back full participant with an elbow injury. I don't think Dalton Kincaid is still right, Matt. That's just my speculation, but they didn't utilize him much at all in that Jacksonville game last week. He's still back-to-back limiteds this week. That's the offense. Now we get to the defense, which to me is the bigger concern. It's a laundry list, man. Safety Jordan Poyer is not going to play. Defensive end AJ Epinesa, back-to-back LPs with a neck. Greg Rousseau, another defensive end, back-to-back LPs. Linebacker Matt Milano has an ankle injury, back-to-back limited participations. Terrell Bernard's on there. Linebacker Shaq Thompson was a midweek addition with a neck injury, limited participant. Cornerback Maxwell Hairston has been ruled out. They did open the practice window for Ed Oliver. He may or may not play. We don't know. That would be a big addition. They also opened the practice window for safety DeMar Hamlin. Based on how he played the last time we've seen him, I don't think DeMar Hamlin would be an upgrade to this lineup if he comes back and plays. So there's a lot of injuries here for Buffalo, and they got the short week. The NFL does not care about competitive balance. They care about TV and rating. So I'm sorry, Buffalo, the wild card team, you may have played on Sunday, but now you have to play on Saturday against the number 1 seed who's coming off a bye week. And the Denver injury report, other than maybe Drake Greenlaw, who they haven't been able to count on much this year anyway, is totally clean for the Denver Broncos. They are completely healthy. So I think the line move across 0 was appropriate, but we're still basically dealing with a pick'em situation here. They're not meaningful numbers, Matt. So I could go either way, really, with this side. I think the total is more interesting. I'll get into that in a moment here after I hear your thoughts on the side maybe here.
Yeah, so this is coming through right now. Drake Greenlaw and John Franklin Myers are good to go for the Broncos against the Bills. So
it's big.
So there we go. Good injury report for them. So I thought it was wrong team favored when it opened. It turns out the market thought so as well. Again, not a super significant move, but just to kind of let you know the sentiment of what was out there. I did play Denver at 1. I didn't get the 1.5, but I did play Denver as a 1-point dog in this game. Steven, I look at this, and this Buffalo run defense is absolutely atrocious. And I think that Denver, you get the week off, you get to scout your potential opponents, right? I mean, you look around, you get to see who you may or may not play. You go in, you get a game plan, and I'm pretty sure that Sean Payton is sharp enough to know that you're not going to win this game on the arm of Bo Nix. You're going to win this game on the legs of 3 different running backs that you're probably going to cycle through and give each, you know, at least 2 of them double-digit carries and a few handful of carries to the other guy as well. The Buffalo team has been able to win games because Josh Allen is a absolute machine. And I just wonder how long they can dance through raindrops. You know, I mean, like, you're going in. Yeah, it'll be cold. You're from Buffalo. Who cares? It's not whatever. The weather's not a concern to me, but you are at least going to altitude. You are at least going on the road. You are at least going to a team that got a week to get better. There's all of that plays into this too. So I don't know. It's hard for me outside of just saying, hey, Josh Allen is Josh Allen, so how can you bet against him, to make a compelling case for Buffalo.
Just to further your point about the Denver offense, I don't love them. I've talked pretty down about Bo Nix all season. The Denver offense, though, over the last 8 weeks of the regular season was 6th in success rate on offense and top 10 in drop back EPA and success rate. So there was improvement for Bo Nix. I think that Packers game really stood out as, you know, legitimately a very well played game by Bo Nix. And I don't think this is a step up in class against this defense. They certainly disguised some coverages and confused Trevor Lawrence and forced some interceptions last week. I will give them credit for that. But I agree with you. This rush defense is bad, and it's injured now on top of that. A lot of guys playing banged up if they're available at all. So that's interesting to me. The other side of this, Matt, and it leads to what I bet. I bet the over in this game. And I got it at a worse number than it is now. The market's against me on this. I would still bet it at 45.5. You're getting a better number now. I think anything under that key-ish number in totals of 47 is a good bet, because it's not just about the Bills' defense to me in betting that over. This may be a hot take. I actually think the Broncos defense is a little overrated, Matt. And I think if you actually go in and look at what they've done game to game, and look at the class of offense and the caliber of quarterbacks that they've played on a week-to-week basis, you can really draw a line between the good offenses that they played and the bad and terrible quarterbacks that they got to face this year. Overall for the season, yes, they are the number one defense in success rate allowed at 37.8%. But down the stretch, you start to see some holes get shot into that defense. Week 13 against a backup quarterback, Marcus Mariota put up a 42% success rate. Basically, a 4 to 5% increase is significant. Week 15, Jordan Love had a 44% success rate. Week 16, Trevor Lawrence had a 47% success rate. Even if you go all the way back to week 2, this defense got carved up by a capable Colts offense. They got carved up by Jackson Dart and the Giants in the middle of the season, despite a miracle comeback. This schedule that they faced this year of opposing quarterbacks was pretty soft. Cam Ward in his debut week 1, Jake Browning, the combination of Jalen Hurts and OC Kevin Patullo in Philadelphia. That was a bad offense and a bad quarterback. Justin Fields, Davis Mills, Geno Smith twice, Mariota, Ola Dukin for the Chiefs, and Trey Lance in week 18. That's 9 bad quarterbacks in 10 games. In the other 7 games, Matt, this Broncos defense gave up 26.7 points per game. Telling me Josh Allen can't move the ball on this defense? So I think you actually have a sneaky over spot in this game, especially when you consider we're getting a great weather report for this time of year.
Yeah, I mean, if we are going to hearken back to the stuff that we quote all the time, I don't want to be cherry picking things, whatever, because if we're going to use EPA as a point to solidify the position and stuff that we're on, then I think we have to be fair in it whenever you say that you don't think that this Denver defense is as good as advertised, where, if you go back to week 10, they're 9th in the NFL in EPA per play allowed, right? I mean, so they're a top 10 defense in the NFL in EPA per play allowed. If you go in and look, and start to look under the hood a little bit with some of the stuff, like, yeah, I mean, you can find cracks here and there. There's definitely no doubt about that. But, success rate allowed since week 10, they're 2nd overall in the NFL. I mean, I want to paint a fair picture of the Broncos. Like, I don't think they are the Texans. I will say that. I don't think they're the Texans, but I think that, I mean, it's kind of like the tier of the Texans in Seattle is in a tier of its own, but then you immediately get to the Broncos after that, in my opinion. I mean, I think that it's like, it is right there. And so, Josh Allen with limited weapons, with, I would assume, the stop James Cook and make him throw to Brandon Cooks, thing that's going on there. Like, I would imagine that that's going to be the case. I don't know. I think there's a world that exists where Buffalo does struggle to score in this game.
The other part of why I like the over, and you know what? Maybe it's just a Broncos team total over. If you disagree with me on the overall handicap of the total, we both agree that Bills defense is bad. The total has come down a little bit. You're getting a better number on Broncos team total as well than you would have gotten earlier in the week. So fair points by you. I wonder about when the Broncos have to level up. And I think what I also love about the total is that we have what is, in my opinion, the 2 best offensive lines in football this year, in the Denver offensive line and the Buffalo offensive line. I know Denver was a borderline historic pass rush this year, but this is the best pass blocking offensive line in the NFL this year in the Buffalo Bills, combined with a Superman at quarterback. So there's enough here for me where it makes me a little skeptical of this Broncos defense when they level up and play a legitimate offense in this league. We'll see. Obviously, the market's against me, and that's never a very fun, comfortable position to be in, Matt. But something around trying to exploit this Bills defense one way or another, I think is the best way to approach this game.
So let's look at this and try and figure out, what does you said, Keon Coleman, like, what does the offense look like for the Bills? I mean, Khalil Shakir, I don't think is going to get 12 catches again. I mean, like, that does not seem like that's in the realm of possibilities here with as good as this Broncos defense. And what is the path to success? Because here's the thing. It's only a 1.5 point spread. Like, there is the win percentage for the Bills is still high in this game. So what is their path to victory in your opinion? How do they win this game outright in your opinion?
Well, I think it starts with Josh Allen in the passing game. I think that they can hold off the Denver pass rush long enough for these receivers to break open when you have an elite offensive line and an elite pass protection that Buffalo does, combined with Josh Allen's ability to extend plays as well. Really the only defense that was able to get there were two that were able to get consistent pressure on Buffalo this year, I would say. Now, you tell me if you think I'm forgetting anybody. The Atlanta Falcons got some good pressure on him, and the Houston Texans as well got good pressure on him. Maybe that means Denver can too. It's possible, certainly possible. But at least for the most part this year, this offensive line has held up very well, despite receivers that are not that good. And I know that they have the reigning defensive player of the year at cornerback for the Denver Broncos, but if you look under the hood, the cornerbacks on the other side of this defense have been gettable. So I do think they can find some matchups to exploit here in the passing game, even if they're going to try and stay away from that side of the field in the pass game.
Are there any props that jump out to you as you kind of feel like that is a route to success for either one of these teams?
Yeah, I think first of all, with just fewer receivers available for Buffalo, what you've seen all year, Matt, if you look at the snap counts, is that they pretty much had a wide receiver rotation, which has made it hard to peg down which Bills receiver you want to bet overs on. Now we pretty much know who the three wide receivers are, and we'll see whether Curtis Samuel is active or not. So if you're looking, on the video side, we have SharpStack pulled up here. We're looking at the prop screen, and you can filter by game and check out the best over-under on receiving yards for this game across all the sports books in your state. And, let's start with Brandon Cooks, who's had a bit of a breakout here the last two times we've seen the starters on the field for the Buffalo Bills. He's still not even at 30 yards for his prop, which is interesting to me. If we look further down the list, I think Dalton Kincaid's a little banged up. If they're going to line him at 36.5, I'd rather take I'd take the over on some lower numbers on the rest of the pass catchers in this offense. So Keon Coleman is over under 19.5. This could be like a 2-3 target situation for Keon Coleman. I'd rather bet like a long reception on Keon Coleman or something like that. Khalil Shakir is, I think we both would agree, still a high reception, low receiving yards situation. He's kind of the safety valve with Dalton Kincaid being a little bit banged up. So I think, to me, if I'm betting on the Bills receiving core, Brandon Cooks still is the attractive line to me with his new role and probably increased snap counts for him in this wide receiver core. The prop that I like the best, though, Matt, is in the rushing yards prop. Like you and I both talked about the rushing D for this Buffalo defense being really bad. And if RJ Harvey is going to be lined at 55.5 rushing yards for this game, and we both think they're going to be rotating in their number 2 running back in Jaleel McLaughlin because they're going to be running the ball a lot in this one, he's lined at 18.5 rushing yards. Either one of those start to get a little interesting for me.
Yeah, if I think that the path to success for Denver is to run the ball, there are 4.5 receptions out there on Cortland Sutton. And, to me, this offense, to give Bo Nix some credit, like, he doesn't really spam any targets. It's kind of like
Yeah.
he will spread it around pretty good, and certainly doesn't have a air quote favorite receiver or anything like that. And if we're asking a guy to get 5 catches in a game in which I think is going to be run heavy for Denver, if it goes to script, then I kind of like the under on Cortland Sutton at 4.5 receptions.
I like that. It makes me wonder about anytime touchdowns if we think it's going to be a run heavy approach here too. And, I always like to see if the starting running back is going to be a plus price in this anytime touchdown market for the favorite in these games. Certainly was the case for Seattle, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, minus 125 for RJ Harvey. That's probably about right. If like we talked about, Jaleel McLaughlin maybe getting worked in a little bit, he's 5-1. I imagine that the Bills, 2 rushing touchdown threats, and Josh Allen and James Cook are going to be lined like we see most weeks. James Cook minus 105. Josh Allen, you can still find a minus 105 as well. So, I've seen worse bets than Josh Allen, who seems to get a passing and rushing touchdown every single game, close to even money here. So,
Bo Nix is athletic. Bo Nix is live.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yep, plus 360 is available for him. Anywhere in that 3 to 3.5 to 1 range at other spots. So, yeah, I think I do. I think there's going to be scoring in this game. I really do. So I do think it's going to be primarily on the ground for Denver, and I think it's going to be primarily through the air for Buffalo in this game. That's kind of where I land with this handicap.
It is Circa Tonight, powered by SharpStack, Matt Brown and Steven Andress, as we move on to the second game on Saturday, which is San Francisco 49ers on the road at the Seattle Seahawks. Just like Denver, Seattle didn't have to play last week. They earned that bye by getting the number 1 seed over in the NFC. This is currently 7 in favor of the Seahawks, 45.5, or I should say 44.5, the prevailing totals out there in the market. So, Steven, all the 7.5s have been bought up at this point. This had hit 7.5 in favor of Seattle. People said no, thank you. We get the news today that Sam Darnold has an oblique injury, though he is, quote, ready to go, end quote, in this one. Oblique injury for a quarterback who has to, use his core to throw the ball and all of that is not very reassuring to me if I was going to lay 7 points with the Seahawks.
You know who else had an oblique injury at quarterback this year? Baker Mayfield. How did he look the second half of the season? Not great.
Yeah.
Metrics really tanked, looked more like a middle of the road to below average quarterback. So none of us are going to have any idea of how severe this injury is, but it immediately starts to throw off alarm bells when it's a midweek addition to the injury report, especially with a team who's coming off a bye week. That means everything was fine Tuesday and Wednesday when they made an injury report, and he felt a little something today. So I don't know, but obliques in quarterbacks kind of affect accuracy with passing. That's the consensus with it. So we'll see whether it's a thing or not. I like the total before this news today, Matt. I like the under on this game before this news for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you watch the Seahawks games and their big games over the last month or so, with the exception of that fourth quarter crazy comeback against the Rams, Seattle has still been doing everything they can, in my opinion, to hide Sam Darnold and be conservative and be run heavy and use play action to try and take some heat off of Sam Darnold. So with this news today, I mean, doesn't it stand to reason that they're not going to be more aggressive passing the ball with Sam Darnold? So, and they have a matchup that they can exploit against a very injured 49ers defense that got even more injured coming into the playoffs. Yes, they won last week, but they played one of the most flawed offenses in the NFL and still needed some drops to go their way to get out of there with a win. So, I think Seattle will continue to be conservative and run heavy in this game. On the other side, the 49ers had no answer for the Seattle defense in week 18. And the only theory I think people can come up with for why this matchup will be any different just a couple of weeks later is some maybe it's too far to say conspiracy theory, but like that Kyle Shanahan maybe held some plays back in week 18. He didn't have Trent Williams. He didn't have Ricky Pearsall. Maybe he went vanilla and didn't show everything to Seattle in that game because they might play him in the playoffs. I think it's I tend to think it's a bad theory, Matt, because you win that game, you get the 1 seed in a bye week. I don't know why you would hold anything back in trying to win such a high leverage game in week 18. So and now the Seattle defense is even healthier than they were coming off a bye week for that game. So I don't know why the 49ers would have more success moving the ball, or at least a lot of success moving the ball after they only put up 3 points and maybe should have had 10 at the most, with basically a goal line interception with Christian McCaffrey in that game. So everything points to the under in this game for me, even if I assume health for Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I was very much on the under in this thing. I thought that this was a decent teaser leg when it was 7.5. Yep. I still think at 7, you can just do an alt line parlay or whatever to get a little bit better odds if you want to go that route with all of this. I think this would have to be a complete dud by Seattle for them not to win this game. And listen, that's in the range of outcomes. If anybody watched any Seahawks games this year, if you bet any Seahawks games this year, you are well aware they can go a long time without scoring, and it's very frustrating. And it's one of those things where you sit there and you just want to beat your head against the wall because you can't figure out, with a team that has multiple different ways to get after you, why in the world are we sitting here having so much struggle to get the ball, down the field. That being said, you're going up against San Francisco that, again, over the second half of the season, it is a bottom 5, bottom 6 defense. It's only gotten worse of late. And I will say this, they were hoping to get Fred Warner back. It's not going to happen.
So the target was next week.
It's not going to happen. So he's not going to be there for this one either. And so you sit there and you try and figure out, okay, is the offense good? Answer, yes. However, the offense also doesn't create any splash plays whatsoever. Okay. So how do we move the ball down the field consistently against Seattle? You might do it once. I don't think you're doing it 2 or 3 times. Like the drives that it takes the 49ers to score on, these 10, 11, 14 play drives, it just doesn't work against a lockdown defense like Seattle that has been doing it all season long, Steven. So again, it's the number 1 defense EPA per play. It is a defense that can get at you in so many different ways. The other thing about this, with this defense that I love so much in this particular matchup, is you're getting a team that can't run the ball at all. Well, Seattle has a good run defense, and they play the majority of defense in nickel and dime. So like you barely are going up against a base anyway. So they're in a defense that is out there to keep you from being able to pass successfully, and they defend the run out of those defenses and enrolls a team that can't run anyway. And so it's just arrow after arrow after arrow after arrow after arrow just keeps pointing towards Seattle in this one, with the caveat that I don't know how injured the quarterback is. And I also am fully aware that we have seen multiple games this year, even against bad defenses, in which they have completely disappeared for 15 to 20 minutes of game time. And, there is a world that exists that San Francisco, if you do that with this offense that has been fairly successful all year, you might be looking up at a deficit.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. The lack of talent that remains on the 49ers defense, they overcame it last week against a very flawed offense. This is not that. The 49ers defense in the second half of the season allowed a 50% success rate to rushing offenses. The only 2 offenses since 2021 that had a 50% rushing success rate were the 2022 Eagles, that rushed for about 2,500 yards, and Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders combined for 24 touchdowns. And the other is the Rams this year. So the inverse of that is just like how every offense that's played the 49ers in the second half of the season is an elite rushing offense since 2021. Just look at it that way. So even if you're worried about Sam Darnold, I mean, they could run the ball 50 times in this game and score 28 points. I really believe that. And to your points about the Seattle defense, you've heard me say it for years, Matt. In this era where a lot of the rules help the offense, the last remaining cheat code for NFL defenses is to get pressure with just 4. And the Seahawks not only get pressure with 4, but they run stop with 4. To your point, they're out there with nickel. They have fewer linebackers on the field, and they're still getting run stops. This D-line is elite for Seattle, and their run stop was number 1 by a decent margin over the next best team in the NFL. And the 49ers, to Christian McCaffrey's credit, and taking on this enormous workload every year under Kyle Shanahan, he was not efficient this year. He might be getting volume. He might be staying healthy. It might still be helping fantasy teams. But on a down-to-down basis, his efficiency has fallen a lot, and now he's got to play the final boss in terms of rush defenses.
If we look here, Brock Purdy is listed at 227.5, pretty much prevailing. So the books are kind of giving him a meh game in this. Steven, if he only throws for 227, they're not winning this game. So this is kind of one of those almost correlated deals here. Like if you like the 49ers in this game, you should also be betting Brock Purdy over 227 passing yards, because if he is held below 227, this team cannot run the ball. Like they cannot run the ball, and they're not going to be able to run the ball against this Seattle team. And so this is a very correlated play for you. If you honestly think the 49ers are going to win this game, then you should also be betting Brock Purdy over his passing yards.
I like that. I mean, week 1, they beat the Seahawks with him throwing the ball. He had 277 through the air. Week 18, had a lot of trouble throwing the ball. They scored 3 points. So points well taken for you on that. And, even going back to last year, when you look at the 2 matchups against Seattle, it's basically the same deal. So I agree with you on that. What's interesting to me in terms of props as well is in the anytime touchdown market here. Seahawks have kind of had a 2-headed monster in the backfield with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, but it's been a lot of Zach Charbonnet near the goal line. He has scored on the ground in 10 of the 18 games this year, which should mean that you should be pretty far away from even money for him to score a rushing touchdown in a game where they're a touchdown favorite in this one. Despite that, you can still find minus 110 for him to score a touchdown in this game. There's even a minus 105 floating around out there. It's been bet a little bit. You could get even money and no juice earlier in the week, but I still think that's a great bet with Zach Charbonnet to score a rushing touchdown with just how great of a matchup this is on the ground for Seattle.
Yeah, it is. This game to me is the only one that I feel super confident in who is going to win. Now, whether they cover the 7 or not, that I don't really know, but I don't think it's going to be a high scoring game. And I don't think that San Francisco's offense is going to be able to light up the scoreboard against this defense. Those are things I am confident in, but 7, look, the back door is just the problem when you're on the full touchdown is the back door is just always open, and that is, as bettors, that's something that we absolutely hate. If you're in the fourth quarter and your team has a 14-point lead, you should feel good about where you're at, but you can't. And that's
what are we teasing this with? What are we teasing Seahawks with? You want to get a little nuts and do a Hawks Hoosiers?
I mean, look, that is well within the range of out. Normally we hate teasing college games, but this college game has 2 good defenses and a low total for a college game. So, I mean, there's only 1 game on the slate for college football. You telling me that market's not efficient? Yeah. So, I mean, this is, you kind of look at it and you go, all right, not projected to be a bunch of points. That means teasing it becomes a little bit more valuable and all of that. I mean, I don't know, man. I think it's viable. I would not recommend it a lot of times, but I would recommend it in that particular game because I do respect both of those defenses, and I don't think that the game is going to be wacky. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree with you. I threw it in there for fun.
Yeah.
Would you do the Saturday teaser at this point? If you can get 1.5 on Buffalo, tease it up to 7.5. That one makes me a little nervous.
I couldn't get there. I know some people who are pretty pretty in on Buffalo, and some people I respect that are pretty in on Buffalo. But, buddy, there is
last week.
There is a world where Josh Allen looks up and he's like, "These are the dudes I'm throwing to." Like, are we serious? Like this? That's what's going on here. So, yeah, I can't do it. It's crazy to say. We're heading to Sunday now, and the Houston Texans are on the road at the New England Patriots. This is 3 in favor of New England. 40.5 to 41 is our total here in this one. Let's play the game of nobody cares what you have. I have a 2.5 in my account on New England, but that number is no longer available. So let's continue to discuss it at a 3, but it does at least let you know who I like in this game. And mainly because going to be no Nico Collins for Houston. They're not going to be able to run like they did last week. And with all of that, the quarterback play from CJ Stroud was abysmal. So, Steven, I think this is where New England finally shuts up all of the detractors out there and goes out. And I think I'm going to play a couple of alts in this thing as well. I think they could win this thing by double digits.
Why against an elite Texans defense? Because I'll preface our conversation on this game with this. I have gone back and forth on the side. I don't have a strong opinion. I have another bet on the total, but let's talk about the side first.
Yeah.
This is an elite Texans defense. The talk with the Patriots all year has been soft schedule. Let's see them against a tough schedule. Yes, they had 6 yards per play last week against the Chargers, but they only scored 16 points. They were 50-50 run versus pass in that game, despite it being a neutral game state going into the fourth quarter. So they didn't exactly let Drake May rip in that one. And now they're playing, I think, a tougher defense. So where is the confidence coming from now that you got a 2.5? So where's the confidence coming from to potentially bet alts now as well?
So because the Texans are the Chargers are the Texans. So it is a team with a good defense, a horrible offensive line, except the Chargers have Justin Herbert and Houston has CJ Stroud. And there's a massive difference in all of that. And then further, CJ Stroud is now going to have to do this without his best receiver. And like before people start saying like, well, Christian Kirk had a great game last week. Okay, good on Christian Kirk. That ain't happening again. Like, by the way, Christian Gonzalez is going to be back for this game for the Patriots. A massive, massive boost for this defense. One of the best cover corners in all of the NFL. I do not know. By the way, one of the best run defenses in the NFL was New England at the beginning of the season. Milton Williams got hurt. Milton Williams came back, and guess what happened? They're good at defending the run again. They're not going to be able to get Woody Marks 100 yards like they did last week in this thing. I think it's almost a mirror image of last week, other than the fact that Houston defense is a little bit better. So instead of 16-3, Steven, guess what? It might be 13-3. And that's like how I kind of like look at this. I don't think this Texans offense is any good at all. And I do believe in New England's offense. A defense can definitely shut down an offense. There's no doubt about that. However, a very efficient offense quarterbacked by a very efficient quarterback, I do believe can overcome some of that stuff. And I honestly love what they've been doing from a coaching perspective with Drake May this year and a lot of that stuff. So again, I think that this is almost the same game as last week, with the caveat that Houston has a worse quarterback than the Chargers do.
Okay. I want to play devil's advocate here to your argument.
By all means, that's what everyone wants, every angle of this, because somebody might really like Houston in this game.
But I want to play devil's advocate with the assumption that a 3.5 pops up for Houston. Right now, there is a plus 3.5 on Houston at least one book, but you have to pay minus 120. But it's been mostly one-way action on the Patriots this week. So it's entirely possible that we get plus 3.5s on the Texans at better prices later in the week. So everything I'm about to say is with that assumption that you get the hook over the most key number of all of 3 in this one. Okay. CJ Stroud did turn the ball over and could not hold on to the ball and looked very uncomfortable in the pocket against the Steelers. I will concede that. They still had 6 yards per play, which is well above average. and turnovers are fluky from week to week. Now, we know the tackles are gettable for Houston in this offensive line. It's been a below average offensive line all year. It started the year as maybe the worst. The Patriots do not have TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. Most of their pass rush comes from the interior of the defensive line, which perhaps the Texans can hold up better against. Most of the pressure from my eyes, CJ Stroud faced against Pittsburgh were from edge rushers and him stepping up into the pocket. So maybe it's a little bit better. And again, they still had 6 yards per play in that game. So that's the same yards per play that New England had against the Chargers. Turnovers go a little bit better their way for Houston in this offense. Maybe they can cover this a little bit, but I don't know. As you can tell, I'm struggling here, Matt. I'm trying to find reasons, but suffice it to say that if I'm having this hard of a time making an argument for the Houston offense, and we know the Texans defense is elite, this goes back to what's been my handicap for a lot of Texans games this year. This is a dead under team in the Houston Texans. And right now we can find totals, I believe, that still start with the number 4, which I don't think is accurate for a Houston Texans team at this point. I know Drake May's on the other side, but just the way they play games, they get enough stops. They're not dependent on confusing opposing offenses. They run the same thing on defense every week, and nobody can beat it because they're that good, or they can't beat it enough to score a lot of points. So I think naturally you get another lower scoring game here. I bet under 41.5 earlier in the week. If the total still starts with a 4, that's my favorite bet in this game is the under.
Temperatures there should be around freezing, maybe a tick below freezing by the time the game gets going, and kind of we're into the game a little bit. Could be a little bit of snow there in that one, but we're not going to get big time winds. It looks like it's going to be about 10 mile an hour winds. So nothing that we're going to get overly concerned about here in this one. Again, it's cold is cold, and no one loves to play in the cold or anything like that. I guess the question then becomes, if people want to really nitpick this, is in comes Houston, a dome team playing outdoors in freezing temperatures with a little bit of wind, which will make it feel wind chill, below freezing and stuff like that. Is that any concern to you at all?
For the offense, for sure. But I'll just say for the defense, this was an elite ball hawking defense when you're inside in a dome in perfect conditions that are supposed to help offenses. And now you maybe throw some winter weather into the mix. Really the only weather concerns you have about potentially hurting a defense is a winter game where there's no wind and snow, because now the defense can't get traction. If it turns into that, then yeah, I think the Patriots have a lot more success moving the ball. So keep an eye out for that in the context of potential live betting the Patriots, if that's what the field at Gillette Stadium winds up turning into.
So now we have to get to a point where we try and figure out who benefits from Nico Collins not being out there. And if you can figure out who that is, then you're in a really good spot. You're going to be able to nail any and all props. But the thing is Steven, we just don't know exactly who that's going to be. I mean, the low hanging fruit is Christian Kirk, but we don't know that for sure.
For sure. We definitely don't know that. I tend to think it might be their tight end, Dalton Schultz. He's been a bit of a security blanket for CJ Stroud in various times this year against that really tough Seattle defense in week 7. CJ Stroud went to him 10 times, 9 catches for 98 yards. Look at the Denver game, another tough defense, 8 targets, 6 catches for 77 yards. So I think when Stroud is worried about his protection, he's looking for Dalton Schultz pretty quickly here. So that would be the first name I would think of versus trying to take a shot on one of these downfield rookie receivers and Higgins and Noel, who may not have the time to have those routes develop if the protection is not holding up with this offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, because Nico Collins not being out there, I mean, like last week, since it happened mid-game, like you had to kind of force it to Christian Kirk or something, but like that's not a one-for-one exchange. They play completely different positions, run completely different route. I mean, you get what I'm saying with that. So
Yeah.
I do think Higgins is the guy that benefits the most from Collins not being out there. It's just, it's like you said, is he going to have time to find him? He's going to wear. I mean, it's super low number. I mean, look at these numbers. This number's tiny. I mean, you can find a 37.5.
Man, look at Noel's number. Over under 9.5 receiving yards for Noel. I mean, is he not going to play 75% of the snaps in this game? I guess it's him and Xavier Hutchinson. Maybe it's a 50-50.
Yeah.
They still like Xavier Hutchinson, but like, you want over 25.5 on Xavier Hutchinson, or you want over 8.5, 9.5 on Jalen Noel?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm pretty interested in Higgins. I think Higgins is going to get
he's the talent,
a decent amount of looks here in this one. And so again, if you're in a FanDuel market, 37.5 is the number. They're not going to throw for nothing in the game. Like they're going to get something, and it's got to go to someone. And I know you mentioned Schultz, and I certainly think that he'll be a beneficiary, but they're going to have to do something to some of the wide receivers. And so I don't know. I think Higgins might be the dude.
Yeah, for me, if it's Schultz, I think it's more of a receptions play versus a receiving yards play. I could totally see with this tight end and protection, it's a high reception, low yardage game. With Higgins, I want to bet outliers because they work him down the field. He's the downfield threat, big body, like, baby Mike Evans. Think of him that way. He's a baby Mike Evans, big dude, big X receiver. So yeah, if I'm leaning into him, it's potentially some alts. It's potentially maybe like an inverse correlated same game parlay that the books have a hard time pricing, where you're going under 3.5 receptions and taking an alt on his yards instead of just playing the over 38.5, maybe getting like 10-1, maybe getting 20-1 if you throw his anytime touchdown in there with it as well. So that becomes an interesting angle for me.
So let's head on to the final game of the week, and this is the Rams on the road at the Bears. This is currently 3.5, 4 in favor of the Rams on the road. 48.5 is the total that is painted across now. We must have got a tick down since you made the graphic here, Steven, because it's 48.5, I believe, at Circa as we sit right now. And so looking at this one, a pretty interesting handicap. Now, there is likely to be a little bit of weather in this one as well. So just stuff that we want to pay attention to. It is Chicago, so I'm not going to tell you that the weather's definitely going to be that on Sunday, sitting here on Thursday. But I would say, hey, look, it's going to be super, super cold. It's going to start in the teens. It could be in the single digits. The wind will definitely make it feel like single digits to those dudes out there. We're talking 10 to 15 mile an hour, probably sustained, probably getting gusts into the 20-25 mile an hour range. So this is something that we definitely need to take into account. I don't really care about Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford played in Detroit. He played outdoors in Green Bay twice. He played in Chicago. I mean, like, I'm not worried about Matthew Stafford. But what I am worried about is you've been talking about these totals over and over again, Steven. Like, you might be foregoing field goals here. You might be like going for it more often if you think your guy can't punt it as well. Because, by the way, the ball becomes a rock as well. When it's 9 degrees outside in winds, like the ball becomes a rock and it doesn't go as far, and there's all of that. And so that is something, again, we just got to keep our eyes open, because this is what it looks like on Thursday. It's Chicago. Who knows what it looks like on Sunday?
A week ago at this time, we were talking about the Bears game, and I said, man, if not for the weather report, this would be a smash over multiple units. And sure enough, it didn't matter, and it sailed over the total in that game against the Packers.
Now, you did need a billion points in the fourth quarter, but yes, yes, yeah,
for sure. But the point is that those defenses were flawed, right? Mm-hmm. And the Bears defense is probably more flawed this week. They lost their linebacker, TJ Edwards. They've feasted on turnovers most of the year. If they don't get those turnovers, teams are moving the ball at will on this Bears defense. So that's the first thing that stands out to me. If it's going to be cold, I still think they can move the ball. Wind could potentially hurt downfield passing, but this Rams team, as I mentioned earlier in the show, is the second best rushing offense by success rate since 2021, behind only the 2022 Philadelphia Eagles. They have a successful run slightly over 50% of the time. The league average is almost 10% lower than that. Huge gap. So I think they can do it again against this Bears rushing defense that is 27th by rush EPA and 29th since week 10. So also bottom of the barrel in rushing success rate allowed, which is probably a more predictive metric for rushing games. So I think this is a really good matchup for a really good rushing offense in LA. I think the other underrated factor here on the injury report is they might be getting the rookie tight end Terrence Ferguson back. In fact, it looks like he will be back. Hamstring injury, but back-to-back full participation. That means the 13 personnel, the 3 tight end sets that they've been using all year and really have been killing defenses with all year will be back intact for this game, which should make them pretty viable in the passing game as well. It's not like the majority of their passing success has come from downfield deep passes that are harder to replicate week in and week out. So I think the Rams score here. You know, the consensus market ratings, Matt, a few weeks ago, before some doubt started to creep in with the Rams and some of these, less than A+ performances that they've had, the consensus market ratings a few weeks ago would have made the Rams almost a touchdown favorite on a neutral field against the Chicago Bears. And it's been the Bears that have been getting bet down to a 3.5 now, which if you strip out home field means that, we're in that no man's land range. So there's a little value there if you think this is an overreaction on people betting the Bears. I tend to think it is. I think, how many times, Matt, are the Bears going to emerge from an in-game win probability of 2% or less? Like, how many times can they keep doing this? I don't know. It seems to me that if you keep leaning into the worst price of the Bears at any point this season, then you're almost relying on some of that smoke and mirrors, on some of that stuff that has not been predictive for most every other NFL team over the past 5 years. So I think this is actually a bit of a buy low with the Rams if you're not overly concerned with the weather.
I still have the Rams the best team in the NFL.
Agreed.
So I get it. Going on the road is never fun. I'm also getting an incredibly experienced quarterback in Matthew Stafford, who has been there, done that. And this is the other question I think you have to ask yourself. What quarterback do you overwhelmingly trust more in this game? Because it's not just you trust Matthew Stafford more. It's you overwhelmingly trust Matthew Stafford more than you trust Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I mean, people are seeing these amazing highlights and high leverage plays by Caleb Williams, and full marks to him. I mean, they are amazing plays. They are amazing passes.
He has a absolute rifle. He has a howitzer on his shoulder.
He really does. And if he does more of that than less as he grows and matures in the NFL, especially with Ben Johnson, I think you are talking about potential MVP candidate in the years to come. But it happened again last week. It's happened most every time I've watched the Bears in the second half of the season. There are a lot of throws left on the field. And it is a primary factor of why they've gotten behind in these games. He misses too many throws that he should make. That's a concern here. I mean, again, before that amazing 4th down play, they had a 2% chance to win that game. So how many times are we going to keep leaning into this? This to me is buy low on the Rams. If the weather wasn't a factor, this would be another smash over against a bad Bears defense and a Rams defense that has looked leaky. Like, let's talk about the Rams defense here. They have looked leaky, but the elite unit in this game is the Rams offense that seemed to be able to put up 28 points or more any given week at this point in the season with how well of an oiled machine that they are. And if there's a defense that's going to stop them, barring voodoo, like Mike Tomlin got fired. The Bears are now the voodoo, Matt. The Bears are the voodoo team. Barring voodoo, this is not the defense that stops the Rams offense. It's just not.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. It's been a great story for the Bears, and they deserve all their flowers, and they like all the kudos, and who knows what the upside for this team could be next year and all of that. But I think this year you're running into a buzzsaw, and that buzzsaw is the Rams with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and Kyron Williams and Blake Corum and Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay and all of that. Like, I think that there's just too much on the other side for the Bears to be able to overcome.
Briefly, I want to highlight one anytime touchdown in this game because we're talking about how great the Rams rushing offense is. Despite that, Matt, Kyron Williams is better than even money to score a touchdown in this game, plus 135. I know they've been working in Blake Corum. Certainly concede that. But around the goal line, it's mostly still Kyron Williams. Blake Corum plus 235, plus 260. You know, in high leverage spots, I think it's going to be Kyron Williams in there in a playoff game, and you're getting better than even money on him on an offense that's expected to score at least 3 touchdowns. I think it's a pretty good bet.
Yeah, I mean, it's they love him down in there. Matthew Stafford throws to him sometimes down there as well. So you don't even have to worry about it being a rush attempt. I think that is certainly that's certainly good there. But I like the Rams side quite a bit, actually. I mean, at 3.5, I think it is just it's a really nice bet. I really like that one a ton.
Well, we got about 2.5 minutes left. Do you want to talk natty? Do you want to talk Super Bowl predictions here? What do you want to do?
Well, let's look over here at the Super Bowl market while we're at it. And Seattle is your favorite out there, 3-1, Rams 325, Patriots are 6-1, Bills 650, Broncos 8-1, Texans 950. If we think that they're going to get it, what is your thoughts here on betting at this juncture, at this late date, betting like Super Bowl futures?
So I still want the Rams price. I think we're getting a bit of a discount because they have to play 2 more road games to get to the Super Bowl, and I'm fine with leaning into that. So I want the Rams on the NFC side. I felt like they should have won that game in Seattle a few weeks back, that Thursday night game, and it just got away from them. I felt they were the deserving team to win that game. If Seattle doesn't get a punt return touchdown, then the Rams probably still win that game. On the AFC side, I came into the playoffs thinking the Houston Texans were still pretty live. And I'll just say that I still think each of these games in reality is closer to a coin flip. I don't think that the Texans should be 3-point dogs. So if you want to just take a price because it's so flat in the AFC, I could see an argument for the Texans. If you're asking me to say who I think is most likely, it's probably the Patriots at this point. I think if they get past this defense, then they have matchup advantages no matter who they play in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, it is absolutely crazy that we're talking about this New England Patriots team that just did a complete 180 from last year being a team that we would consider betting here in this, but it's just the truth. It is just the truth here in the final little bit. Stephen, the Broncos will be 1.5 over the Patriots in the mythical matchup. The Texans 1.5 over the Bills. The Bills 1.5 over the Patriots, 1.5 Broncos over the Texans. So we do have all of those like mythical matchups available over there if you guys want to go check those out too. So, and listen, by the way, if it doesn't happen, it's just a voided bet. So you might find something you like.
Yeah, I did that last week. I have a under 46.5 in the San Francisco-Seattle game that I didn't think was ever going to actually become an active bet. You bet those hypotheticals and the game doesn't happen, they give you your money back.
Thanks to our friends over at SharpStack. Of course, TNF Live is your code over there at SharpStack if you have not gotten an account over there. And 1041, 930 AM WKCT in Bowling Green as well. For Stephen, I'm Matt. Good luck.